You know, when we talk about protecting the environment, it's about more than just recycling our plastic bottles. Behind the scenes, there's this really powerful set of legal ideas that shape how we hold governments and even big companies accountable. So let's dive into the three big rules that are basically the backbone of modern environmental law.
To get our heads in the game, just think about this for a sec. Imagine a river, right? It's the lifeblood of a community, and then suddenly it's polluted. So, who's responsible for the cleanup? The government? The taxpayers? The company upstream? Well, this exact kind of question is what these principles were designed to answer.
Okay, first up is an idea that's actually brilliantly simple, the precautionary principle. The easiest way to think about it is just better safe than sorry. It's all about looking ahead and trying to stop a disaster before it ever has a chance to happen. Now, the key phrase here, the part that gives this principle its teeth, is even if scientific certainty is lacking. What that means is we don't have to wait for 100% ironclad, undeniable proof that something is causing harm. If there's a serious threat, we have to act. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
And this is what's truly a game changer. It totally flips the script. For the longest time, the good guys had to prove something was dangerous. Well, this principle shifts the burden of proof. Now the company that wants to do something has to prove that it's safe. See? It puts prevention first and basically says we're not going to wait for a catastrophe to act.
So that's the theory, right? But does this actually work? How has it been used to protect the planet in real life? Oh yeah, let's look at a few landmark cases.
In India, for instance, a bunch of tanneries were polluting the Palar River. The court didn't wait around for years of studies. It just said, nope, you have to adopt cleaner practices now. And get this, in the Philippines, a court used this very principle to protect forests for future generations, people who aren't even born yet. I mean, that is some powerful long-term thinking.
Our second big rule is just as easy to grasp. It's called the polluter pays principle. And the simplest way to remember it is probably the oldest rule in the book. You break it, you buy it. You make the mess, you clean it up. Simple as that.
This is all about accountability. You know, for decades, pollution was just seen as a cost of doing business. And who usually had to foot the bill for the cleanup? We did. The public, the taxpayers. This principle says no more. The financial burden for pollution should land squarely on the person or company that caused it.
And here's the genius part. It's a two-for-one deal. Not only does it help pay for restoring the environment, but it creates this massive financial incentive for companies to get their act together. Suddenly, to avoid those huge cleanup bills, it becomes a lot cheaper to just invest in cleaner, greener tech from the very beginning. It's just good business.
And let me tell you, the courts have really enforced this one. In one case in India, industries that poisoned the groundwater had to pay for the cleanup and pay compensation to the communities they harmed. In another, mining companies that destroyed forests had to pay into a special fund dedicated to restoration.
And hey, wait a second. Notice anything familiar here? That Vellore Citizens case is back. That's because the court used both principles. It used the precautionary principle to force them to change and the polluter pays principle to make them pay for the damage they'd already done. This is so key. These aren't separate rules. They're a toolkit and they work together.
All right, our third and final principle is, well, it's a bit of a mouthful, and it operates on a much bigger global scale. It's called Common but Differentiated Responsibilities. Let's just call it CBDR, okay? Think of it as the fair share principle for the whole planet.
The name actually tells you everything you need to know. The common part means that, yup, every country on Earth has a role to play in protecting our shared home. But the differentiated part recognizes that not everyone's responsibility is the same. It all boils down to two things: who created most of the problem over the last century and who has the money and technology to fix it now.
So essentially, what this means is that developed nations, the ones that have been industrializing and emitting carbon for over 100 years, they're expected to lead the charge. They have to shoulder more of the financial and technical burden. Meanwhile, developing nations who have fewer resources and a much smaller historical footprint get a bit more flexibility.
And you might think this is just something for big international treaties, right? Nope. Courts inside developed countries are actually using this logic to hold their own governments accountable. In the Netherlands, a court literally ordered the government to up its climate goals, specifically citing the nation's historical responsibility. The same kind of logic was used in the US against the EPA.
So, okay, we've gone through all three. Let's pull it all together. Why are these three rules so important? Well, because they don't just exist in a vacuum. They create a complete framework for how we take action.
It really works like a three-part system. The precautionary principle is step 1. Prevent the harm before it can even start. If that fails, step 2 is the polluter pays principle, enforce accountability. And step 3, CBDR, takes that same logic of accountability and applies it fairly on a global scale. It's a powerful progression: prevention, accountability, and fairness.
So together, these ideas give us this incredible legal foundation for protecting our planet. But as we stare down these huge challenges, climate change, biodiversity loss, it leaves us with one really critical question to think about. Are these principles, as powerful as they are, going to be enough to get us through the crises of tomorrow?